and secured a $27 million federal grant, the largest grant our school district had ever received. It would have taken us, frankly, years to bargain this program with our unions, but with a grant in hand, they signed on together with us in weeks. That program was created by teachers for teachers. In Chicago's model, every adult in the building, not just teachers, but clerks and janitors and social workers and cafeteria workers, all adults were rewarded when the school improved. It builds a sense of teamwork, and it gives the whole school a common mission. It can help to transform and support a positive school culture. Today, there are dozens and dozens of districts with performance pay programs. There are 100 more districts competing right now for our teacher incentive fund dollars. Educators all across this country want to get better, they want results, and they want the opportunity to try new approaches to learning. So, as we look at the last 18 months, it's absolutely stunning to see how much change has happened at the state and the local level because of these incentive programs. And that's why we're asking Congress to continue Race to the Top, I3, SIG, TIF, and the Promised Neighborhoods programs. And let's not get sidetracked in a false choice between competitive and formula funding, because we absolutely need both. Our blueprint and our 2011 budget requests both call for fully funding formula programs like Title I and IDEA, homeless, migrant, rural, and English language learner programs. Even with increases in competitive funds in our proposed 2011 budget, 80% of our K-12 programs are formula programs. Our blueprint also envisions a more humble and realistic federal role in driving reform. We're a long, long way here in the nation's capital from our nation's classrooms. And if we've learned one thing from NCLB, it's that a one-size-fits-all remedy generally doesn't work. In fact, those one-size-fits-all ideas tend to stifle creativity and innovation at the local level. NCLB prescribed tutoring for an entire school, even if only one subgroup was struggling. It prescribed choice for millions of children in thousands of schools, even though there are very few available options. We want to change the accountability system in two important ways. First of all, we want to hold states, districts, superintendents, and school boards accountable. We can't put it all on schools. They don't operate in a vacuum, but as part of a system that ranges from highly supportive to highly dysfunctional. We want to stop labeling so many schools as failures, as demoralizing, counterproductive, and just plain wrong. Instead, we want to recognize and reward high-achieving and high-growth schools, offering them carrots and incentives that we know will help drive reform and help accelerate their rate of progress. For schools in the middle, which face a variety of challenges, from stagnant dropout rates to stubborn achievement gaps with a particular subgroup, we want to give them much more flexibility to improve while holding them accountable for results. We can point them to success, but we can't mandate solutions. They have to figure that out at the local level, and I'm absolutely confident they will do that much more consistently than we ever could from here in Washington. The only place where we are explicitly prescriptive is with the bottom 5% of schools, those that chronically underperform year after year after year. Not the 95% of schools in any state, but that bottom 1 in 20 where things simply aren't working for children. We have 2,000 high schools that account for half of America's dropouts. Those 2,000 high schools also produce 75% of our nation's dropouts from the minority community, our African American and Latino young men and women. Many of these dropout factories are graduating fewer than half their students. They're in crisis, they are denying our children education, and we have a moral obligation to take dramatic action and to do so with a real sense of urgency. And we know what it takes: great principals and great teachers, a professional learning culture where everybody takes responsibility, from parents and to students to educators. We all must be held accountable for these outcomes, and we all must take responsibility for challenging a status quo that actually helps to perpetuate cycles of poverty and social failure. We have learned from NCLB that if we don't mandate real consequences in these struggling schools, nothing will change, and none of us should accept that. We have reached this stage of education reform after decades of trying, failing, succeeding, and learning. We're building on what we know works and doesn't work. And while there's still some honest policy disagreements among key stakeholders, there's far more consensus than I think people realize. Consider our system of teacher evaluation, which both frustrates teachers who feel that their good work goes unrecognized and ignores other teachers who would benefit from additional support. Everyone agrees that teacher evaluation is largely broken. 99% of teachers today are rated satisfactorily, and most evaluations ignore the most important measure of a teacher's success, which is how much their students have learned that year. Teachers also worry that their job security and salaries will be tied to the results of a bubble test that is largely disconnected from the material they are teaching. So let me be very, very clear. No one thinks test scores should be the only factor in teacher evaluations, and no one wants to evaluate teachers based upon a single test on a single day. But looking at student progress over the course of a year in combination with other factors like peer review and principal observation can lead to a culture shift in our schools where we finally take good teaching as seriously as the profession deserves. We also agree that the current generation of assessments don't really measure critical thinking skills, and that testing only for reading and math ignores many other critically important subjects. Overemphasis on tested subjects narrows the curriculum if teachers and principals believe that the only way to show progress is to teach to that test. But if we have better assessments that measure student growth and critical thinking skills in many subjects, we can stop assessing whether students are just mastering the basics and get a much fuller picture of student learning and achievement. The bottom line is that if we want different results, we have to do things differently. Not just talk about it, but actually do it. Higher standards and better assessments, as important as they are only the first steps. States and districts will also need to redesign curriculum to meet those higher standards. And even as districts face tight budgets, we still need to better train our teachers and support them and recruit new ones who will help our students reach those higher standards. And here again, the warriors of the quiet revolution are way ahead of the curve. And some of them are here today, and I want to call them out. Sarah Brown Westling is from Iowa, and she's the National Teacher of the Year. She's been in the field for only 10 years, and already she's at the head of the pack. I had the pleasure of spending some time with her earlier this year, and her commitment to every single one of her students was absolutely stunning. Sarah, can you please stand? I'll give you a round of applause. Sherry Horsley is the principal of West Carter Middle School in Olive Hill, Kentucky, which is another amazing turnaround story. And her superintendent, Darlene Gee, is also here today. In 5 years, she boosted math scores by 50% and reading scores by 25%. Today, it was one of the top middle schools in the state. Sherry, can you please stand? We have some great superintendents here as well. Dr. William Covington from Kansas City, who's facing some very, very tough budget decisions that were neglected for years by that district, but he's determined to turn crisis into opportunity and right-size the district so that it can improve. Terry Greer is here from Houston. He is pushing hard on school turnarounds and has a bold plan for evaluating teachers using multiple years of data on student growth. And we have Andres Alonso from Baltimore, who's also turning around struggling schools and making significant gains in test scores. And I'd like to ask William, Terry, and Andres, all please stand. Thank you so much. Beyond them, there are literally thousands and thousands of innovative educators all across America using technology in new ways to improve learning education. From distance learning programs in Alaska to an online PD program in Iowa called the Heartland Area Education Agency, to an online charter school in Utah called Open High. And I want to salute some of America's labor leaders who are also defying the conventional wisdom and low expectations of others and showing how labor can be both a partner and a leader in driving reform. Diane Donahue is the president of the Delaware Education Association. She was part of the team that won the first Race to the Top grant. In her words, she signed on to the plan because the Delaware plan offers us an opportunity to change the culture in our schools and in our classrooms. Linking student growth to evaluation is the linchpin of this reform plan. What she and Lillian Lowry will do together for education in that state is going to impact the entire country. And I'd like to ask Diane